Hello, in this video I will show you how to make a Spring Boot project with JPA, Spring Web, and PostgresQL persistence into our dbeaver. You could also use pgadmin, but nonetheless this is a Spring Boot project that gets close to making a, I guess what you call a RESTful API, but it's got some pretty cool stuff going on. So remember, when you want to make a Spring Boot project, you go to File, New, Project. And if you have it in your generators, you'll have it here, a Spring initializer. I don't have it. I don't know what happened. It's not there anymore. Anyway, you can go to this site here, start.spring.io. This is the exact setup over here on the left side. This is what you need. 11, 2.6.1. Your name should be the name of the file that you keep your project in your local computer. You could call it repository also, your group. your company, google.com, Google, or like your university, Bunker Hill Community College, and it's going to make a nice package for you where you're going to build out your models and interfaces. Okay, your name. We'll create a name here. This is going to be like a Hibernate YouTube video. And you got to add dependencies. Spring Web, you just click on it, add dependencies, JPA, add dependency, Postgres. These are the only three you need. This will look exactly like the code I have up on GitHub, which you can click below and clone the project if you want. It'll help you learn, and maybe you could add stuff to it and make it cooler. So from here, you just click generate, and it'll give you a little zip folder. You're going to extract that folder. Double click, extract all. Browse, I usually put it in this folder. I wonder if I can do this here. What did we call YouTube? We called it YouTube, Hibernate YouTube, right? Man, I'm falling asleep. Hibernate YouTube. Extract. Let's see if that works. So you'll go to File, Open. You don't go to New, even though you are creating a new project. You just open. You're just going to open this thing you got here. Hibernate YouTube. Click OK. It's going to build your project. There it is. Source, main. Your main method should be in here. There it is. It's giving me a little bit of a hard time right now. I think it might be confused a little because I have multiple files called demo. What if I click load there? What will that do? Okay, that looks more correct. Alright, just have to be patient, wait a few more moments. Let's look at the pom.xml. So in the pom.xml you'll see these dependencies. It's in the tags, dependency, another dependency. These are the three big dependencies we put in there. There's your name, Hibernate YouTube. And what's important is you gotta go into your application.properties, and you're gonna paste in all the correct application.properties because you need it in order to connect to your database and connect everything. You need it. That needs to be correct. you have to pay attention to detail a lot, because if you get one little thing wrong, you might get stuck. You might end up not knowing what's going on. But yeah, that's how you start up your Spring Boot project. Now I already have something made, so we'll go to that. We'll close this thing. We already got something better going on. Okay. So your application.properties. You should just paste in all of this, okay? Your data source URL. Your data source URL will be, after this 5432 is a / Postgres. That's like your default DB they always give you. Question mark, current schema equals Hibernate. You can put anything here. Current schema equals whatever name you want to give the schema for your database. But I recommend putting in all these other settings here. You put your username, your password for your database. And then the next thing I recommend you do is you go to dbeaver or pgadmin, whatever Postgres thing you got. And what you do is you go into schemas, you right click, you create new schema, and you'll type in Hibernate or whatever you want to call your table, maybe user table or user schema or my schema. Anyway, you'll create a schema there, and whatever name you give your schema, that's going to go right here. Okay. Right now I'm dealing with this Hibernate schema, and there's no table there, not yet. And I'm going to show you how Spring Boot will make a table for you. The way it makes a table is in your model. You'll create a model package, and your class is called users. Our table will be called users as well. There's different theories as to, like, when you're dealing with users, do you call the public class users or user? Is it singular or plural? I went with plural because it's hard to explain, but I was having a hard time with singular user. There's all kinds of things where JPA Hibernate gets confused when it sees a singular user word. Whatever. Anyway, in the fields for this class, these are your columns, the columns in your table. Your ID is your primary key, annotated with @ID. Also annotated with @generated_value, so it's going to increment those IDs. String username, string password. So remember, classes are blueprints for objects. This object will also be a table. It's going to go into like that whole Spring container thing, right? And so since this is a blueprint for a table, it makes sense that your table has to have columns, and these fields here, these private fields, are your columns. You'll right-click Generate Constructors. You'll generate a no-args constructor and an all-args constructor. You'll right-click and also generate getters and setters. Just punch getters and setter. I already have them, but that's how you create getters and setters and constructors. Add entity. This is a JPA entity. This creates a. You need this for the persistence. So yeah, you got to have these annotations, and you got to set this all up correctly. This you'll right-click, create. Maybe I'm falling asleep. You'll create a repository package. In here will be your interface. Your user repository interface extends JPA repository. And this, I'm going to control-click here. Now this public interface has all kinds of CRUDs, methods for doing all kinds of stuff. And you can even go deeper, and I think some of these you can click and see like how it does other stuff, like So you won't have to type in SQL queries. You won't have to type in like select from table, blah blah blah. You won't have to type in create table, blah blah blah. This JPA repository knows how to do all that stuff. So you'll just all you have to do is just create this interface class, extend the JPA repository. The JPA repository, you have to tell it to deal with this user, this model of users, and the primary key is going to be a long data type. So you'll go to your user controller, because we actually have a little servlet kind of website, web page API thing that we're dealing with. Got to annotate it with REST controller at request mapping. This / users is the address for this API, whatever you want to call it. So this user controller class injects the interface. So it gets a constructor injection, right? Yeah, constructor injection. And this @get mapping, this is the response. So when somebody goes to this site, localhost 8080 / users, the response back to the user, which you always need a response if you're doing a RESTful API, it will be an OK 200 response, and it will execute the find all. And the find all is like boilerplate JPA thing. Find all. Like if you think of CRUD, create, read, update, and destroy, delete, create, read, update, delete. Read, it's a read method. So your response that you'll see on this little website, the response will be a find all of the user table. Alright, so I'm going to input my password and we're going to run the program. Okay, so let's run the program. It's going to take a few moments. Spring is a pretty big framework. Okay. It's done thinking. Alright, let's go to the dbeaver. Let's refresh this schema here. There it is. There's our table. There's our users table. It's empty. It's got nothing in it. Yeah, and I'll show you the localhost website. Click enter. And there you go. You see that empty array? So remember, this does find all. The response when you get this URL, the response is an empty array because the database is empty. Okay, we got a schema in there, but there's no information in there, so it's an empty array. And I'm also going to show you Postman here. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and look at that. If you're smart, you might have noticed Postman, it's the same thing as a website. It basically, Postman tells you what it deals with JSON. It tells you the string values that get passed around when you do a GET request or a POST request. This is a GET mapping / users. When you go this raw, if you highlight raw here, this is where you're going to type in this is where you can type stuff in this is where you can call your RESTful API in. It's called testing your endpoints. Okay, you use this thing to test your endpoints, and so you won't have to always refresh this big bulky website. You can use Postman, and I think it's just better technique. Okay, so let's put some information in the database since our database is empty. I already have some stuff set up. So we'll insert into users. These are your columns: ID, password, username. The values of, we'll insert an ID of 1, password of password, and a username of new user. Do Control Enter. Okay. We'll go back to Postman and we'll make that GET request again. See what happens. And there you go. It tells us the response that we get from, this comes from our Spring Boot application that's running right now. And there you go. It tells us in the database we got an ID of 1 and with the password and a username there. I can even show you it in the database official. Refresh it, refresh. There it is. It all checks out. Website, same thing. You see that? Username, password, all that stuff. It even sort of looks similar to JSON. It has the, because I think this is JSON right here. Inside the array here is the JSON. So I showed you a lot. I showed you how to set up the Spring Boot project. I showed you the application.properties, the correct setup there. How to use Postman, how to use your dbeaver. You gotta, I recommend making that little schema first. Yeah, the code is on GitHub. Try it out. You might have some errors here and there, but remember, pay attention to detail. You might have missed a little thing here or there. If you get errors, read the responses you get, and from there you should be able to figure things out. And happy coding.